So I've got some good news. I now know the direction that I want to take these PCs in, and if you've no idea what I'm actually talking about, in my last PC build video that you can see here, I wasn't sure what I was going to be doing with the PCs that I built on the channel, but now I'm going to be selling them on because I've got no use for them once they've been built and benchmarked. Saves them sitting around this room. So I've started a PC flipping side hustle, if you want to call it that, but with only one PC so far. This second build has been fun. It's an M80X case, so nice and small, and with a bit of a story surrounding the graphics card, but more on that in a moment. The case was a refurbished thing from CCL, I think. It came with a few fans, but I didn't use them. It cost just over £31 and it's black. It has tempered glass side and a front panel and it looks quite smart. Now the motherboard is an MSI A520M Pro, an M80X AM4 board I got from Currys here in the UK for £48. The CPU being paired with it is a Ryzen 7 3700X, which I picked up for £73. The cooler I'm hoping to use is a nice little thermal right I got for under £20 online. For RAM, I'm recycling an old 32GB kit, so no real cost there. And for storage, I'm giving this Fangjang one a test again because for a terabyte for £45, I didn't think it was too bad a price at all. The graphics card has been a bit of a journey. I started this build thinking that I was going to be using my R9 280X from Sapphire. However, I very quickly realized that the age of the card and driver compatibility issues with Windows 11 was going to be a bit of an issue. And while I played games like Fortnite and could hit a fairly decent FPS rate, if this was going to be sold on to someone, I didn't want to cause any issues there with future use. So instead, I got myself a nice little RX 580 8GB version from eBay for £66, including the delivery, so I was happy with that. For a PSU, I purchased a CX500 again from eBay. It's a Corsair one because of the black cables, really. And finally, for fans, I got 6 unbranded fans with a hub for £29, and it comes with a little remote that you can click and change the colors and the patterns and that kind of thing. Very basic kind of stuff, but they do look nice and colorful in the case. So all in all, I have spent £353 on this PC, and with any luck, it will go quickly. So let's quickly start the build. So putting together the gaming PC was a very easy job, and I didn't really fall down anywhere except for the front I/O inputs because, as always, they absolutely suck. Now the CPU cooler needed a lot of pressure pressed down on it for the screw holes to latch onto the bracket, but it went in simple enough. And yes, there was a backplate in the motherboard box this time, so there was no having to order an extra one from someone on eBay. Swapping out the case fans was a bit of a job though, because there was not really much room to move around inside of the case, which I did feel pretty heavily when it came to running any cables, and my cable management, which did suffer because of this. It did remain pretty much, unfortunately, non-existent. Now I must admit, take for granted these bigger fish tank style cases like in my personal rig here, as well as daisy chainable fans now, which does reduce that cable clutter. Now anyway, it was necessary because I want this gaming rig to look quite striking. And also, just to let you know, we did install the R9 280X into the build first, because how could we get the Fortnite footage at the beginning of the video? But there is no footage of me actually taking the graphics card back out once the RX 580 was actually delivered. So with all of this in mind, I did go out and find an RX 580 on eBay, as mentioned at the beginning of the video, so I will be swapping out the graphics card for that. Now it should be a decent 50% or so jump up in spec from the 280X that I currently have here now, and frame rates at 1080p should improve drastically. It has also got FreeSync available as well to minimize screen tearing. It's the 8GB version, so a much more capable card, though you're not going to be pushing much past 1080p gaming with it, especially on this PC here. So it is a brand new day. This has turned up in the post. It is not a 5070, unfortunately. It is just a 5070 box. It is in fact an RX 580. The seller that I bought it from mentioned that they were going to be putting the card into the 5070 box because they have recently upgraded. It is in fact an MSI RX 580. Yeah, unfortunately I lucked out there, but we're gonna get this into the PC quickly and then run some benchmarks. So the RX 580 is fully installed. We are now getting a Windows 11 compatible driver downloaded. And with the AMD driver downloaded, I'm going to jump into some Fortnite again and just see how that performs now that we've got the RX 580 in there, to see the bump up in FPS compared to when we had the R9 280X. Yeah, R9 280X in there. And yeah, see what improvements we can make. So jumping into a game of Fortnite, you can already see the FPS hitting a much higher value. So the average at the moment in this little bit of combat here, I had no idea where this other enemy went, by the way, when I threw that grenade. He must have flown really high up. But anyway, the average FPS is sitting at 102 with the frame rate really jumping between 140, but it does really dip down to the 70s and 80s when it gets a little bit busier, which we'll see now. Average FPS again is fairly consistent at 103. The frame rate at the moment, as you see, does dip into the late 50s, late 40s there, falling down the hill in the car, which again doesn't really affect gameplay too much, but it does cause the game to stutter slightly. And to give you a quick side-by-side of what I was talking about, the RX 580 with an average FPS at the moment of 102 on the left-hand side, while the R9 280X came in at 54. Now, of course, I know there's no combat going on screen at the moment on the right-hand side with the 280X, but it just gives you an idea of the type of upgrade that I wanted with the RX 580. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, that 50% or so bump in performance and frame rate. Both are running at 1080p and both were between low and medium graphics presets, with the RX 580 performing a little bit better there. And with all of our game testing, we are running really at 1080p resolution at medium presets at most of the time, except Arc Raiders. We'll go through that in a moment. But with Apex Legends, you can see that our frame rate average was sitting at around 93 FPS with a 1% low of 72. And it was really consistent with its FPS as well, which is really nice to see with Apex Legends. And it provided a very smooth experience overall. Even though Red Dead Redemption 2 did struggle to get to that 60 FPS mark, being a single player game, it doesn't really matter the frame rates that it did achieve, being an average of 53 FPS with a 1% low of around 44 FPS. And coming into Valentine here, there's no real action happening, and Red Dead Redemption 2 is a pretty calm game when it does come to action, so not much is going on screen at any one time, although it is a very detailed game, of course. But again, it doesn't need that much to run. You got to remember now that it is an old game. Battlefield 6 did offer a fairly stable experience, although the frame rate hitting 40 FPS was nowhere near the 60 that you would ideally want for a smooth experience. It was still playable, although please do excuse my gameplay here. I'm not the best Battlefield player in the world. But overall, it was a fun experience on this PC. I suppose to improve that FPS slightly, you could lower everything down to a low graphical preset, but unfortunately, at that point, the game will start looking very pixelated and a bit rough around the edges. Sitting at a medium preset was okay, but unfortunately, it did just struggle to hit that standard 60 FPS that you would want. What more is there to say about Overwatch really, except that it ran exceptionally well with an average FPS of 94, a 59 FPS 1% low. It looked great, it felt great, it was super smooth gameplay, and overall for a competitive shooter, it was a very, very nice experience. As slow as this round was, unfortunately, to demonstrate Arc Raiders, it played exceptionally well. It is running on the lowest graphical preset, and it has got FSR running as well, or FSR 3.0 at a 1080p resolution. So unfortunately, the graphics quality is at its bare minimum, but for an FPS average of 69 with a 1% low of 44, it was a very smooth experience if you wanted to play a bit of Arc Raiders on a mid-tier gaming PC like this one. I thought I'd throw some CS2 in here because, as well as Overwatch being a competitive shooter, the FPS average is 112 with a 1% low of 86 makes this game absolutely playable at 1080p on this build. So if you are a competitive shooter fan, you aren't going to have any issues running games like this. Now, I always find it quite strange jumping back into PUBG because I played it so extensively when it did first release as my Battle Royale of choice. Well, to be honest with you, it was the only Battle Royale game that you could play at that time. but it's nice to see that this game does still run very well on a mid-tier PC at 1080p medium preset. You are looking at an average FPS of 87 with a 1% low of 67, and for the majority of the game, the frame rate actually did hover around that late 80s to early 90s, and overall it was a very, very smooth experience. And to be honest with you, it's going to make me want to jump into a bit of PUBG again just to give it a go, see if I could win another round. Unfortunately, I didn't win this one, but that's just how it goes. Taking a look at temperatures, the Ryzen 7-3700X hit a nice and toasty 76.2 degrees Celsius, which I thought was not bad whatsoever. Moving on to the SSD, you can see that it hit a max temperature of 47 degrees. It ran a little toasty before, so I wanted to test that to see if we were hitting the same temperatures. And the graphics card, the RX 580 series, was hitting a wonderful 76 degrees as well, which is absolutely fantastic and says to me that there is a nice amount of airflow. So there we go, another successful PC build. Let us know in the comments what you think and if you would do anything differently. I think adding the RX 580 over the 280X was a worthwhile upgrade because that frame rate just exploded at 1080p gaming, of course. But for the slightly extra cost, I think, yeah, it was very, very good. So I spent around £40 on a 280X, which I thought wasn't too bad at the time. But of course, the oversight there being the Windows 11 drivers. So I had to spend £60 on the RX 580. Not too bad a difference at all. So the PC, as you can see here, is ready to be sold, and that's what I will be doing. I will report back on what I sold it for in the next video, and then somehow keep some kind of tally of profit going. And just if you're interested in that kind of thing, I know I am. And then that money is going to be put into the next PC build, and then we'll go from there with another PC. RAM prices at the moment, of course, I know are absolutely through the roof, so that may put a bit of a dampener on things. Or I might use the 280X in another build and just get rid of those components out of my office. I do have 4 fans sitting here ready to go, which I didn't use. Came with the case, but I didn't use in this build because I wanted the nice colourful fans to really show off the PC. But yeah, we're starting to get a bit of a mishmash of PC components now. So maybe I'll put that into a new build in the next video, but who knows. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, hit the like button, subscribe to keep up with our latest tech and gaming videos. And then also this new series now, which is starting to come to fruition. The last couple of PCs that I've done, I've really enjoyed it. So yeah, let's keep this train going. Anyway, as I say, thanks very much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.